that are headwinds for the U.S. economy, and we currently put the odds of a recession in the U.S. economy around 20%.
So Gregory, starting off, coming out of the US this week, there's been some fairly upbeat economic signals. So maybe you can start by giving us an overview of the momentum in the US economy at present.
Yeah, I think the momentum for the U.S. economy is quite favorable as we look into the third quarter. Indeed, the latest data when it comes to consumer spending, even when it comes to consumer confidence, is quite upbeat. And what's quite reassuring, too, is the fact that consumer spending and housing activity overall appear to be well supported by domestic fundamentals in the form of still solid employment and wage growth that's also gradually starting to firm.
So we've spoken about the pickups there, but there's also issues such as the US election uncertainty and a strong dollar that are also headwinds for the US economy. So what are the major headwinds at present? Can you highlight some of them for us, please?
Yeah, I think that while the economy might be growing at a moderate 2 to 2.5% pace overall in 2016, there are some headwinds that are lingering. There are the traditional headwinds from a strong currency, a strong US dollar, the fact that we have a global environment that's still quite sluggish with relatively slow global growth, the fact that we still have fairly depressed oil and gas activity. Those are some of the lingering headwinds. And then we have some new headwinds in the form of credit tightness from bank lending to commercial and industrial companies, the fact that we are seeing some rising uncertainty with regards to the upcoming presidential election, and that's uncertainty in two forms. The first form is the ex-ante uncertainty, because businesses are generally not going to invest a lot unless they know a certain outcome is going to happen, and they don't like uncertainty when it comes to making business decisions. But it's also the ex-post uncertainty, the risk of, for instance, having a Trump presidency, which could, according to our latest estimates, derail the U.S. economy. So a lot of headwinds that are constraining businesses overall, and to some extent also consumers, a little bit more cautious in spending overall.
And you're right that uncertainty is definitely something that is playing on investors' mind when looking at the US economy. So some analysts have stated that the US economy is at its highest risk of recession this year. So in your opinion, what is the risk for a recession this year?
Well, I think that when you try to evaluate the risk of a recession in the U.S. economy, you have to factor in two elements. On one side, you have fairly strong domestic fundamentals. You have a number of headwinds in the form of a strong U.S. dollar, sluggish global growth, depressed oil and gas activity, tightening credit, and rising election uncertainty that are headwinds for the U.S. economy. And we currently put the odds of a recession in the U.S. economy around 20%. Now, that might seem high, and it is indeed a little bit higher than, say, 18 months ago, but you also have to keep in mind that generally what we see as the main threshold for a very high likelihood of a recession in the next 6 to 12 months is around 50%. So we're not quite there yet. The economy still has some legs and still has some further room to grow, and hence we're looking at some of the signals that could point us towards a recessionary environment, but at this stage right now we're not in that type of environment.
And what are some of those signals that you are keeping an eye out for?
Well, I think one of the main signals is private sector confidence. Right now, we're continuing to see fairly solid consumer confidence. We're seeing solid business confidence despite the recent Brexit and despite some of the uncertainty around the world, including some of the recent terrorist acts around the world. We're seeing consumers and businesses still feel generally confident about the present situation, but also about the outlook. And that's a reassuring feat. If we were to start to see some downgrades or declines in confidence in the private sector, along with declines in stock prices, that could feed off of itself and lead the private sector to be much more cautious about spending. And in turn, that could lead us to an environment in which the economy starts to slow and potentially we enter a recessionary environment.
Great. Well, Gregory, thank you so much for telling us what to keep an eye out for. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all from myself and Gregory, but if you did like this interview, do like and comment on dukascopy.tv.